Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's time again for this week's newsletter from the Unfiltered News from the Reality Zone, where political correctness is not spoken here. Compiled by G. Edward Griffin, the man who wrote the book Creature from Jekyll Island, about how banksters took the world in the United States, especially the United States. January 12th through the 18th, 2013. And this week's comic strip is Open Season, Law-Abiding Gun Owners. And you have people in the background, one holding a dough roller in their hand to come after him. Oh yeah, that's not how it's really happening. I mean, the people who are against guns are talking about going out and shooting the very people that are against guns. That doesn't make any sense. If they're so anti-gun, why would they want to go hunt down the people who have guns, with guns? Brr. Think that's crazy? Here are the headlines for this week. The U.S. Mint temporarily ran out of 1913 American Eagle silver coins at the end of the second week in January, as demand skyrocketed. Increasingly, buyers are looking to precious metals as a storehouse of value and a hedge against inflation. NBC, January 18th. Algeria. Islamic militants attacked an energy production plant and took 132 hostages, many of whom are foreign. Algeria drew ire when authorities staged a rescue mission without consulting the governments of the foreign hostages, some of whom may have been killed in the rescue attempt. AP, January 18th. Craziness, I'm telling you, craziness. They're trying to fluff everything up for World War III. United States against the world. And Israel, of course. A Florida Senate committee has proposed a bill to ban the use of drones for spying on citizens. Activist Post, January 17th. Yeah, armed drones at that. I mean, what's going to happen when they have several thousand drones in the air and you got aircraft, commercial aircraft in the air? I see catastrophe happening in every turn. Sometimes these drones just go off on their own. SLV is the trading symbol for silver exchange traded fund that added 572 tons of silver to its assets sheet in one day. If that much silver actually had been purchased on the open market, the price would have soared. That didn't happen because the silver was not delivered and likely doesn't even exist. It's all on paper. It was merely a paper transaction and is the same kind of fraud as fractional reserve banking. Beware of trading in non-physical precious metals. Zero Hedge, January 17th. Sheriffs across the U.S. are standing up to the federal government overreach on gun control by refusing to enforce the federal laws and bans. Presidential executive orders, which are illegal, apply only to the federal government, which means they can only take guns away from the federal people in the federal government. You know, executive orders do not work outside the 10-mile square area of Washington District of Criminals. It only works in D.C. It doesn't work outside that. I don't know how they got executive orders to work outside that. They must have pencil whipped another order to make that so. Without action by Congress, there is no legal basis for them to be forced on state and local law enforcement. Even the action by Congress, the states still have the authority under the Constitution to nullify any law they deem to be unconstitutional, which it is. InfoWars, January 17th. As soon as he signs the first executive order, the police on Capitol Hill should arrest him and take him away and charge impeachment onto him. Abomination needs to be removed. Article of interest. The Arctic sea ice that was reported to have undergone record-breaking melting in August of 2012 has refrozen and returned to its normal level. This will not be widely reported in the mainstream media. No tricks done on January 17th, because it never really happened. If it did, it was cycle. It happens every year. When Al Gore was showing his ice falling off in his film, The Inconvenient Truth, it was actually in the springtime. They went out there. Park rangers even came forward up there around the Arctic and said, yeah, they come out here every year and take pictures of the ice falling off because it breaks off every year when it gets warm. And and Al Gore used it in his inconvenient lie. Or was it a convenient lie? No, man, it's just unreal. Next, Obama has signed 23 executive orders that include encouraging doctors to ask patients about personal gun ownership and linking gun ownership to mental illness. I knew that was going to come up next. I mean, even if you're not on SSRIs, they're going to say you're mental because you believe in having guns. And only the government's sane and can have guns and can go out and use guns on the citizen. Does that sound sane? No. Natural News, January 16th. But that's what the government's trying to convince people through the mainstream media. The MSM liars. Oregon. 2 more sheriffs have vowed to refuse to enforce gun control laws from Washington, D.C. CBS News, January 16th. Video. U.S. 6 states are considering legislative action against the federal government for unconstitutional gun control laws. Judge Napolitano explains that the state and local law enforcements are not subject to executive orders, as the orders apply only to federal agencies. However, state and local law enforcement usually complies with the feds anyways in order to receive free money, federal grants. YouTube, January 16th. Yeah, they're in to get that money from the government when they should be generating it for their own state under the 10th Amendment. Germany Central Bank, the Bundesbank, announced that it will transfer 300 tons of gold from its New York Federal Reserve, which currently houses 3,400 tons of Germany's total holdings. The rest is scheduled for delivery over the next 7 years. Why not take it all within a few months? Because the feds do not have it, and it's the banksters' friends in Germany are willing to help cover the fraud as long as possible. The fraternity looks out for its own. Gata, January 16th. There you go. Doesn't even exist. We owe $240 trillion to all types of banksters across the world, and the American people aren't really responsible for it. Video. U.S. following the posting of law-abiding gun owners' names on a newspaper website, the Virtuous Group tried to get these anti-gun journalists to post signs in their yards that declare their homes as gun-free zones. Guess what? Naturally, all the parties declined for obvious reasons, that such signs would be an open invitation to criminals. But they want you to do that. They want you to open your home up to the criminals. Invite them in. Give them tea and crumpets and give them all your guns and money. Yet these same people insist that schools should be gun-free zones. Yeah, a sign that says, open shooting range. And your homes as well. Hypocrisy reigns supreme. Right Scope, January 15th. In New York, Governor Cuomo, another traitor in the state legislature, signed the nation's most restrictive gun control provisions into law to test the public. And if they can get away there, they think they can get away everywhere. CBS New York, January 15th. U.S. Mega retailer Walmart will hire 100,000 Americans, drawing heavily from newly discharged veterans over the next 5 years. It also will buy $50 billion in American products over the next 10 years. Breitbart, January 15th. That will be seen, or have to be seen, I guess. Pakistan's Supreme Court ordered the arrest of its prime minister on corruption charges stemming from accusations of kickbacks when it was the Minister of Water and Power. The court's order jeopardizes the authority of the ruling party and the president, Zardari, who has been accused of corruption by the judiciary in the past. Meanwhile, the government also is facing opposition from a cleric who has the support of 40,000 protesters against corruption. However, it is possible that the so-called cleric, who comes from Canada and the U.S., actually is a puppet of the West who is using the popular anti-corruption theme to gain support. Note that the protester signs are in English. This is one to watch closely, of course. LA Times, January 15th. Video. Additional news on this story here. RT. And as they said last week, they don't put RT stories up unless they're guaranteed that they're accurate. In other words, find other sources for it. Kentucky, Jackson County Sheriff Denny Payman, speaking as the highest elected official in the county, vows to protect the people in his county from gun confiscation by the federal government. InfoWars, January 14th. Hopefully more will do that. Indiana and South Carolina will introduce legislation to nullify Obamacare that also will criminalize its enforcement. This would make state and local compliance with the unconstitutional act of the federal government a felony. New American, 2013, January 12th. See, we got to get rid of abomination care. An estimated 800 armed civilian vigilantes in 2 Mexican towns are acting as police in response to out-of-control violence from drug gangs. The vigilantes are making arrests and imposing a curfew, and it appears to be working. That's what the 10th Amendment was supposed to be in the United States. AP, January 12th, where the people police and don't have to pay someone to police. U.S. Internet pioneer Aaron Swartz committed suicide at age 26 following the threat of decades in prison and $1 million fine. Industry experts say the charges against him were outrageous and that the episode was in retaliation for Swartz launching an internet campaign that defeated a bill to prosecute those who posted to their website anything with a copyright. It was understood that this law would have been used primarily to close down websites and blogs published by critics of the government policy. HuffPost, January 12th. And it would have been. They took away everyone's freedom of information. And that's where it was up to. New York Mayor Bloomberg is restricting prescription painkillers to 3-day supply and forbidden many pain drugs altogether in 11 hospitals controlled by the city. His goal is to crack down on addiction, supposedly. Daily Mail, January 12th. Well, it's just to make the patients suffer a little longer. Analysis section. Video. Judge Napolitano reveals the logic disconnect between Obama's pushing gun control to keep our children safe while he simultaneously kills innocent children overseas in drone attacks. Since 2004, 176 children in Pakistan alone have been killed by the drones, and 2 of those children were Americans. Fox Insider, January 17th. Where is the law enforcement in Capitol Hill? He should be arrested for murder. But no. Industrial military complex runs it all. Video. That's not capitalism, that's fraud. Max Kaiser explains how the Deutsche Bank made $650 million betting on rigged LIBOR rates in 2008, knowing that it was a safe trade because the bank itself could influence the rate that they were betting on. It's a gambling casino. That's all main Wall Street is, a gambling casino. YouTube, January 16th. LIBOR is another gambling casino. Video. This short video shows how kids become victims of antidepressants and psychotropic medications. These cause impulses for homicide and suicide. These drugs are the common denominator in all recent school shootings and massacres. The federal government and other gun control advocates are definitely silent about this fact. YouTube, January 16th. And they are. It's the SSRIs that are causing these school shootings. They put signs up in the crazy mind of the person on SSRI saying an open shooting range, moving targets. That's what that sign says to them. It doesn't say, we have guns, don't come here. No. Video. Ben Swan explains the Supreme Court hurdles that Obama will face if he tries to ban firearms through executive orders. Reality check, January 12th. And he will. He should be arrested as soon as he tries that. Radio show host Mark Levin is furious over proposed gun restrictions, particularly those that would limit high-capacity cartridges. His reasoning is that this would make the gun owners vulnerable if they were defending against more than one armed criminal. Furthermore, high-capacity cartridges are no threat in the hands of law-abiding citizens, and criminals will get them even if illegal. That's what the whole purpose is, to have guns for the legal people. Real Clear Politics, January 12th. Video. Firearms expert explains what an assault weapon is and why banning them fails to decrease violence. Full disclosure, January 12th. Yeah, an assault weapon is a weapon that can shoot 3 shots at one time to fully automatic. None of the guns, the AR-15s, can do that. It's one bullet at a time as a trigger is pulled. It is not an assault rifle. That's a misdemeanor. And it's been pushed by the mainstream media controlled by the banksters and industrial military complex folks. Here's a great photo to look at. You just have to share some of these photos. A bunch of birds in there. And you got the humor for this week. And you also got the government can and enjoy, and then the unfiltered form. And there's all the unfiltered form. Who is running the New World Order? You can find out all this. I'll have a link at the bottom of the video for that. And don't forget all the books on the right that has been published through the Reality Zone from G. Edward Griffin. They'll all wake you up, make you wide awake, and realize you're being hoodwinked and fooled. The TV is nothing but a fantasy. When you watch mainstream news on the TV, it's most likely it's staged. There's videos on YouTube. Check them out. Looking for staged events, staged news. And it'll show you how they put green and blue screens behind the news reporters, and they can sit there and be anywhere they want to be and look like they're really there, but they're not. That's how good the technology is on that. Until next time, this is Spellbinder saying, be good at it, and have a wonderful weekend. Good evening.